right now, we have done our scratch coat yesterday with a bonding agent primer 100 beneath that for adhesion to the drywall. And now, after we've had our scratch coat cure sufficiently, now I'm basically using the same primer agent. I'm getting mostly about 80% coverage. I'm not going to get all up into every little tiny groove, but I have those ledges. I got a lot of bonding agents going to adhere that top coat product 100% to the scratch coat. But using this primer 100 or the primer 110 or the bond coat is just added insurance for your top coat of material to never have to worry about a delamination issue of product at all. Tell I'm doing everything to get in the grooves to really dissipate it out. I don't want too thick a product. If I had too thick a primer, then it would possibly have a viscosity where when you put the top coat material on there, just like right here, then it would want to possibly sag down the wall from being too wet. Once I get this primer on there, then I'm going to let it tacky up almost to dry to put my finished product on top of. That way it doesn't, you can let it completely dry. But if you have that little bit of tackiness towards the end of this dry time, which inside here, we've got cool temperatures, maybe 20, 30 minutes, then by the time I was to primer a whole job, I'd be basically starting the top coat application in the beginning right after that. So right now, we're just waiting for this to tacky up, to be able to put the top coat product on, and being sticky, it's going to allow that product to not only attach itself and anchor into the grooves of the scratch coat, but it's also going to be able to have a little bit of this stickiness, hold it to the wall as well, and keep it in place, but not too wet so that it doesn't sag down the wall. And there's also a reason why we also do our grooves horizontally and not vertically. I've walked up on jobs before and I've seen guys scratch their job vertically, and what they're doing is they're giving themselves lanes for that type of product to run down and to sag much easier. So that's why we give it the horizontal ledges that we do. But we've primered, so now we'll wait a little bit and then we'll mix up our wall mix and put the top coat on to be stamped. Hey, so I'm Greg Hensley with Stone Edge Services, and we're getting ready to apply some Pro Wall Mix. I got my Hawk, my trowel. We're going to throw a little bit, but I have my scratch coat. We've already primered. Most of it's become tacky, and I now am going to use anything I can grab that I don't have to break my back, and I'm going to start applying some of this wall mix. The first layer that I'm going to put up is my bond layer, and I'm going to put that fairly tight into that scratch coat because it's like an anchor, and I really want to get it anchored in there so that when I put my top coat on, which I'm going to put much lighter, I won't have to use as much effort. It'll hang right there. Notice I'm staying in my lanes. I'm going to do a few
lighter as in you're going to put less on, or lighter?
No, I'm going to put more on. I'm going to use a lighter touch so that I can do more and I'm not defeating the purpose by pushing too hard and just putting a minimal amount of material. That's one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people make, is they push too hard when they trowel. So therefore, they don't get the fluffiness that we're looking for stamping. If they keep troweling tight, over tight, over tight, then the stamping becomes much harder and much more rigid to accomplish. So, I have a tight coat. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to finish the tight coat. However you can get it on there, doesn't matter. But you just want nice, quick and tight to the actual surface area. Boom. A little bit more. Boom. And again, the reason why you're doing this tight coat is so that it's nice and anchored into the scratch. And there you have it. There's your tight bond layer to now go ahead and put your top layer on. So maybe I'm out on the job and I'm taking my time on a particular area and my batch has sat for several minutes before beginning to continue to use it. Maybe it's out in the sunlight, you forgot to put a tarp on it, or maybe you forgot to put some cardboard on top of it to keep it congealed. Well, you can tell when it begins to get a little bit tight because it looks more like that than a nice, more thinner viscosity. The viscosity level is chunky, kind of breaks apart, it's not as smooth. So As long as your pot life is not 40 minutes, you're welcome to add a little bit of water to that, temper it again, and continue on using it. We wanted you to be able to see what it might be like when you add a little bit of water. So, I'm gonna take a little water. Again, I'm gonna move it around. Now the reason you don't wanna add too much water and make it the viscosity level too thin, one, you ruin the integrity of the mix. Two, the more weight that you have in your mix, the more weight you have on the wall. So if I have the same inch material, but I've used a lot more water, that 1 inch is gonna be a lot wetter. That's when people have materials sag. Not necessarily our materials, but any material that you may use. So now, by using the least amount of water to cement ratio that I possibly can, I can keep it from sagging on the wall, I can still keep it very fluffy, and I can go several inches to do custom type work, even beyond the regular stamping that we're gonna do. So now we're doing our top coat of material. I'm getting as much as I can handle, and I'm literally putting a light layer right up on the wall. You can use a hawk and trowel, you can throw it, whatever means that you want. I can do a control joint, I can battle that. Right there, it's gonna hang. So I'm gonna do 2 layers like this, and then I do want to show you how some guys maybe throw the mix. First I'm gonna finish off on the sides. Smooths off really nice off the trowel. It's not a sticky mix. Gives a real nice stamp impression. What makes ours a lot different is the makeup that we make that makes it more user friendly, so that you can actually trowel it up on a wall very easily, even for someone that doesn't want to throw it. It also shoots very easy through a mortar sprayer or type popper gun. But, you know, I hear people say all the time, oh, I'm not going to get any on the floor, blah, 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 blah. I see everybody who throws it, and I've never seen anybody that doesn't get a little bit of residual on the floor when they do that. So, biggest thing you can do is just mask off. Pick it up off the floor and reuse it. No problem. So, boom. Now that, and we're gonna throw a little bit. All I'm trying to do is stay in my lanes so that when I'm done throwing a pass, I can hit it with my pull trowel. Are you gonna throw thousands of square feet? You are not. I'll do 2 lanes of this and I'll get back to troweling. But if you're doing smaller jobs, fireplaces, small retaining walls, anybody can throw mix. There's nothing to it. And it hangs right there. So don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, as they say. And that's it for that. Before I continue on troweling, I'm gonna grab a pull trowel, show you how to finish that off, and then we'll finish that. I've grabbed the pull trowel because I want you to see what it's like when we actually, you know, someone gets out of the way when they're applying, someone can follow right behind them and hit it with a pull trowel. Look how that material smooths right off. And that's all we're trying to do.
Does it matter which way you trowel?
It does. We never want to trowel down, so you can trowel up or to the side, okay? And don't feel like you got to get every little tiny blemish out, because the stamping is going to take care of that. But reason why we don't want to go down, because we don't want to pull the material off the wall. But you can see right now, I'm a good inch, a little bit more than an inch in some places. But for what we're stamping today, we're not going any further. I'm going to trowel the rest, and then we're gonna go from there. Notice how I'm using my hawk and trowel as a platform. Boom. I can even move some of that over. You notice how I don't have too wet of a material? Because I don't really want to put all that weight on the wall. I want a nice, somewhat congealed product that's lightweight and fluffy for stamping. That way I know I get all those wonderful, nice stamp impressions, everything that I want. Fill in a few holes and be done with it. And that's it. So out of 2 bags that I put on the wall, 1.25 inches, whatever, this is all that happened to fall on the ground that I could have just as easily picked up and basically thrown anywhere or put anywhere on the wall that I wanted to continue to use. So even though it may fall a little bit, you can still pick it up and use it, mold it, form it anywhere you want on the wall. I'm keeping the pitch of the pool trowel nice and flat, just so that I can close up most of the pores, so my stones have a nice, smooth appearance. I don't have to close out everything, but I am a little bit of a perfectionist. But don't worry about getting every little blemish. It'll stamp out. So, even that line right there from your trowel. So, now, we are mostly ready to stamp. And the way that you know is, 1, get all of the moisture off your fingers, because that water can act a little bit as a release agent. You want to have a dry thumb to be able to test and see if you can stamp. That's what I love about the Pro Wall Mix from Stone Edge Surfaces is almost once you lay the material, it's ready to stamp. And we're gonna go ahead and stamp the material right now. So hey, we are getting ready to stamp with our Mountain Dry Stack stamps on the Pro Wall Stone Edge Surfaces material. So what I'm doing now is spraying a little bubblegum liquid release agent so that these stamps will not stick to the surface area. I'm just misting the surface as you see, not oversaturating. Then I'm gonna pick up my stamps and begin to stamp. So, first thing that you do is I want to hold the stamp in the air. If I take one hand, that's weight off. That's going to cause the material to maybe slip down. So when you put your hands in, torque one hand up. That way you can hold it, stamp one side, put your hand up in, torque it, you can stamp one side. So I'm immediately going to put my stamp up and press it right in. One side, come to the other side. I'm getting all those beautiful impressions of the stone, and then boom, coming right off. And there you have a beautiful Mountain Dry Stack. So, pick up my next stamp. The next one, I'm gonna overlap all the way into the stones that preceded that. Hold one side, torque my elbow in, top of the hand out. Switch hands. And off. Gives me all those beautiful stones. And I'll finish off with this particular stamp right here, holding it out, boom, and holding it off. At the end of a job, at the beginning, you're always going to finish that out with a margin trowel. We'll go over that shortly. So, for the next one, I'm going to reverse it. My mail-in was going this way. Now my mail-in's going to go the opposite way, and I'm going to stagger it like tile so that I don't have a repetitive look going all the way down the project. So I go all the way up into the stamp, torque one hand. I got one side. I'm always looking at the top edge to make sure it doesn't sag. Now I'm stamping the other side. Notice, I'm not trying to stamp across myself. So get it stamped off the wall. Take my next stamp, overlap, 1/4 inch. Be quick with it. You don't have to wait a bunch of time. It's one thing I love about the stone edge wall mix is, like I said, as soon as someone gets out of the way, applying, someone can start stamping. So if you're coming up against a wall and the wall is coming this way, you can't go any further than that. Of course, I can't bend that stamp in there. So how do you do that? There's 2 ways. One, you can take these single stones. You can come in and create your own stone that you want. Boom. And off. Okay? I could even take a margin trowel, finish that off, and let that be a stone and close that up right there. Okay? You can take this down here. Boom. Off. Okay? I can take another stamp.
What if you don't have the smaller stamps, if your particular stamp that you're using doesn't have that?
Then you're going to use the bigger stamp. And first thing I'm going to do first is do the next layer, and then on that one we'll show you that, because I want to finish this out with the thin layer. So now that I have this one going that way, I'm going to reverse it. And all I'm going to do is create half a stone there and finish that off. And maybe finish this one off. But I'm holding it off the previous stamped stone. And that will give me that look. And it's only at the end of the beginning of the job. So now, I'm ready for my next stamp. Maybe you've gone a little bit of distance and it's time to re-release your stamp. So I've re-released it. Now my male end is going, boom, boom. Now my male end is going back to the right. Right, left, now right again. And I can start right here. I'm leaving that one open. I'll create that with texture and stone. Boom. And straight off the wall. Now, one of the things we were talking about is when we stamp, you want to make sure that you do not jerk the stamp off the wall. So when I go up in here, I'm getting down with the material. I'm holding it with one hand. But what I want to make sure of is once I stamp, I come off pinch, come off nice and easy to create those stones. So if I have a stone configuration where I can't get in there to finish, and we're going to stop and start right down here, then I'll just put the stamp up, hold it off what I've already stamped, and boom, just create those stones. Okay? Anything, if you have a stone, look at that. I can just close that up with my fingers to make that one big stone again with a little bit of texture. Let's talk about stamps for 1 second. So when you get a stamp set from Stone Age Surfaces, sometimes it comes in a set of 3, set of 4, set of 5, maybe some individual ones, but if you have a set of 3, you actually have a set of 6, because every time that you turn the stamp on each row, you're reversing the pattern and you're doing it below that. So that's actually giving you 6 patterns, and then of course no rock is identical, because then the coloring process, continually in the coloring process, every stone is going to have a different color, a different look. So yes, sometimes when you're putting it all up before you do any coloration, you may say, well, I can see that stone here. Well, after you do the coloring process, it's going to be all different variables of colors, and that's going to give you the most authentic, realistic look of real stone. When you're stamping and you have wet material, Main thing you want to make sure you do when you stamp, we've talked about taking your hands out, tucking in and keeping it torqued. I call it keeping it torqued to keep it level. Is also, if you're up here and you got to come off, you come off like this. If you try to come off down, you're going to rip material down. If you're down here and you come up, you're going to rip material up. So no matter where you are, if you're right here, come to the chest. If you're right here, come to the belly. Down here, come to the legs. Any deeper than that, get it down on the ground and stamp. Take your time, do it right, but you can still be very rapid and very efficient by stamping Stone Age Surfaces Pro Wall Mix. So remember guys, rotate your stamps as you're coming through. Don't just use the same stamp over and over. Pick yourself up a different stamp, put that bad boy up, and really stamp it in there and create that impression. I should have all of that. And press and come right off. Get all that beautiful stone texture. And on the home. Remember to overlap. Keep it up. Notice how I'm not being too timid with it. I am pressing my material in to get the impressions of my actual stones. So what I'm doing now is I'm just finishing this off with these few individual stones here that we originally had. And this is a very mountainous stone, meant to run together, meant to be very jagged. I want it to. I think I'll use this one down here. Okay, as you're stamping, you see all this beautiful gray, wet concrete in the stamping depiction, the stones. They have nice depth to them. Don't get caught up in the monotone look of it. As it dries, then you're going to come back and do your coloration process. And that's really going to separate all these stones and let them stand out from each other. And right now what we're going to do is just like if it was the beginning or the end of a job, as he comes over here, that's the beginning of a job. So you have to finish out some of them stones. So this is your first wall. You may have a margin trowel, and you may finish out a little bit of a particular stone. You may have a grout roller. I'm gonna leave this a stone. It's got that little beautiful line in it, but that's part of the texture right there. Okay, so I look for anything that stands out that I may need to manipulate, and I'm gonna manipulate that right there, and then that's a stone. Again, this is a mountainous stone. So all I'm doing right now is finishing out all the lines that all the debris from finishing out is going to be brushed away at a later time. Not at this moment. And I finished that side. Now we come over to the other side like it's finished. And I'm going to finish out all, look at that. Finishing out all the lines next to the wall for all those stones. You only going to do it twice, at the beginning and at the end. But this helps it have more depth. Boom. And boom. And one right there. This one right there. You can release everything you use that goes on these, you can release to make sure that it doesn't stick too much to your product. Oh. All right, so now we have that. If I have something that maybe didn't get the complete line, we didn't want to stamp this perfect for you because we wanted to see if we can create a line. And look at this. So I can go right in and I can create that stone line. So any types of different rollers, anything to get yourself some depth and create the illusion of having that shadow. Once you create a shadow, guys, you've created all the depth you're really going to create. So don't get caught up in that. All right.